Hi and welcome to Tarmac Let's Talk, a tiny strip of land nestled between the Arabian Sea and the Western Ghats. Greenery, beaches and backwaters. Kerala, destination of a lifetime. Today we have with us Secretary Kerala Tourism, Mr.Suman Billa. Let's talk. Responsible tourism is the hot word in the tourism industry today. What is responsible tourism and how far has Kerala progressed on that front?
Well, responsible tourism, typically is an extension of sustainable tourism, as it were, because I think about 7-8 years ago we've been talking about tourism and how you have to make it sustainable. And responsible tourism goes one step ahead and talks about basically three pillars on which it stands. The first is you have to be environmentally responsible, which means whatever is the intervention that you do as a part of tourism has to be, environmentally sustainable, and it has to be responsible from that point of view. Two, it has to be economically responsible, which means that tourism should not be just for the sake of the tourist and the entrepreneur who has the hotel, but it has to, the returns from that must percolate down to the community, and tourism must become an all-encompassing thing which brings the community within its ambit. So largely it plays out in terms of the number of jobs it generates for local community and the level of procurement that happens from the local community, because you have hotels today, say in some of the hotels in Maldives, where everything, starting from the bread to to the sausages to eggs, are flown in from Germany. But when you do a model like that, you're actually talking about an ecosystem which completely excludes the locals. There's a tourist who comes, he has a great time. There's an entrepreneur who brings things in, he makes money, and there's nothing in it for the entrepreneur, for the local community. So I think the idea is to how to make the local community part of a stakeholder and part of this whole process, and how the returns from this actually go back to them. The third pillar is social responsibility, and which is, I think, very important from the point of view of generating certain level of respect and awareness for the cultures to which the tourist visits. So, if you are typically, say, from the UK and you come to Kerala, you should have had an opportunity to understand and look at the soul of Kerala, understand its culture and respect its people, and go back with that positive understanding. And similarly, I think the interaction must be two-way, in the sense that even the local community must be as much enriched by the interaction with the tourist as the tourist is enriched by his interaction with the local. So, it's basically around these three things that we do. A long time ago there was on the BBC there was a program of a little boy was asked in Cuba on what he would like to be when he grows up, and he said the tourist. So which really, to my mind, captures that, because the local community thinks that here comes the tourist, he has a great time and he goes back, there's nothing in it for us. So that is something that we want to change through this system of responsible tourism, and especially in a place like Kerala where just because I think nature has made us so that we're heavily populated, whether you like it or not, you will have to interact many times and for several things with people who live around you. And I think the only way we can take this industry forward is by getting onto this platform of responsible tourism.
The rains are here. So what is the Department of Tourism doing to promote monsoon tourism?
Well, we had promoted monsoon tourism some time ago in 2005-06. Subsequently, that got converted into a dream season, in which we did the summer and the monsoon together. But recently, when we did some brainstorming, we thought that, look, the summer is anyway taken care of, because all across India, when there are holidays, people are compelled to travel, and people will travel to Kerala. So what is really peak season for international is really peak season for domestic. But if you really look at the way the numbers are panning out, I think the monsoon months are really the weakest, and there is a sort of a necklace formation like that if you look at the graph. So I think the 3 months when there is a dip, that is typically June, July and August, are something we need to focus on. So we've just launched a monsoon campaign which kicked off last month, and the response has been encouraging, has been very promising. I get the feedback that I get from the trade is that the numbers are being generated. Earlier, one of the things that we said was, the platform that we played on was, we said, if you are the kind of a guy who cannot afford Kerala during the peak season,
okay,
then
come
perhaps,
during the monsoon.
When you're, during the monsoon, it's going at a discount, so you might just be able to do that. Now we've not taken that price platform at all. We are basically pushing it more aggressively, as monsoon is a time when you should visit Kerala because it's beautiful, it's great for Ayurveda, and it's a great time for younger people to romance and for older people to reconnect. So that's the kind of a platform. It's mostly about togetherness.
Yeah, I saw some of the ads, and that's what is being pitched.
Right.
You mentioned Ayurveda. Monsoon is also the best season for Ayurveda, and there's a huge draw among foreign tourists for Ayurveda. Which are the catchment areas as regards Ayurvedic tourism?
Typically, I think the single largest market is Germany, because typically most of the people who come for Ayurveda to Kerala is, if you were to sort of look at a concentric circle, I think of all the number of people who come from Germany, you'll have a significant number of them coming for Ayurveda. But we also have good numbers coming from France and England and some parts of Europe. Off late, I think for the past few years, we've been pushing this in the Middle East platform, and I see encouraging numbers coming from Saudi Arabia, from UAE, so from the Middle East as well. And Middle East, it also plays out because for them this is the peak summer season, and therefore it's a great time for them to come and catch up with the rains.
The seaplane service that was launched recently kicked up some amount of controversy. What is your response to the critiques?
Well, typically as things happen in Kerala, anything that you want to do, there will be some opposition. But I think irrespective of political color or posturing that various people do, I think you must look at the issue on its merits. There is a DPR which has been done by Pawan Hans, which has been on my website for the past almost a year now. And the DPR has covered more or less most of these issues. What are the concerns that are being raised? The first is, they say that the seaplane will create turbulence in the water. The DPR clearly states, and it is axiomatic to say, that a seaplane's propeller is not in the water. A speedboat's propeller is inside the water. So the amount of turbulence it causes is far higher than what a seaplane does, because this is actually in the air, and two is, they say there's a noise pollution. And that is also brought out clearly in the DPR, and we've actually demonstrated it when the plane came here, is that the sound that is generated is only for 1 minute when it takes off. And in terms of decibel levels, it is much lower than somebody operating a chainsaw. And the third thing that people have been saying is about the possibility of oil spill and fuel spills, which can happen on the water and happen to that. We are very alive to that, and which is why we have said on none of the water drones will any aircraft be allowed to be opened up for repair or for fueling. Whatever maintenance activity or refueling activity has to happen will happen in the airports. So unless I am satisfied that I can do the refueling part at the water drome without affecting the quality of the water, we will not allow that. Well, some criticism has been that traditional fishing grounds are being impinged upon. But when the team went and when we actually did that, there was a lot of exercise which was done, and we have only chosen those areas which are suitable and which do not have regular movement of in terms of boats and all that, and where fishing is to its barest minimum. In fact, our assumption is that there is virtually no fishing in the places where we have done. But even assuming that seasonally people come and seasonally put it up, well, I think we have more or less addressed that. So as far as I am concerned, I think we have taken all the precautions that need to be taken while launching this project, and I wouldn't have launched it if I was any less confident of it than I am. But having said that, I also understand that there are various people who might have a lot of apprehensions about the project, we are willing to talk to them, and I think it's only a matter of all of us sitting together and understanding each other's point of view, and I'm sure that we can find a way out of this.
The Muziris project is India's largest heritage conservation project.
Right.
Tell us a bit about this venture.
The Muziris is really, it's a very fascinating project to do, because if you look at the history of Kerala, it has always been at the heart of the globe, as it were, at the heart of the world, as it were, because people have come to its shores in search of spices. And the interaction really goes back from 600 BC, and it's still continuing to the present day. The Muziris was the first global port of Kerala. So if you read Pliny and if you read the Sangam age literature, it all says, the reference is, Pliny calls it primum emporium Indae, which means it's the most important market of India. And the port just dropped off the map, as it were, because of earthquake and the river changing its course and all of that. So part of the excitement is that we are actually chasing and trying to look at history, the port which is lost.
Yeah. Okay.
And we have not yet found, the actual site of Muziris, but I'm sure that we will get to that eventually. But the project area that we're talking about of 150 to 200 square kilometers is very fascinating, because I think that is where influences of people from 600 BC to the present day are there. I don't think there is any other piece of land in which there is such a great deal of
history
elements pertaining to different eras and periods, across time. And the Jews, the Phoenicians, you name it, they have all been there. Two, I think it's a great model to look at how Kerala has always been a peaceful place, in the sense that we have all of these 31 countries who have come, we have traded with them, and we've got on with life. We have assimilated them, as it were, and we have not fought and created. So I think it shows that the Keralite mentality to be able to adjust and look at things towards peaceful resolution. Second important fact is that the great level of religious tolerance that Kerala has displayed, because when the Jews have come, the Islam, the Christians, Thomas came in AD 42, and Christianity came to Kerala even before it reached Rome. So from that point of view, I think it's again a great showcase for religious tolerance and assimilation. We've not discriminated against people who came here. They have been honored, they have been given tracts of land, they have been given rights to work on. So I think, today the biggest problem in the world is people are trying very hard not to live with each other. And I think Kerala can be a great model to the world on how tolerance and practically being able to, peacefully resolve issues for everybody's betterment. And I think it's a great model, and which is what we're pitching now. We've elevated the Muziris to a spice route project, which is now being pushed by the United Nations World Tourism Organization. And
what are we going to be actually showcasing there? Are we building museums? What is it going to be?
Basically, as far as Kerala is concerned, we will be doing three things. We will be using Fort Cochin, because that's where a lot of spice heritage is already there, as the first landing point. Then we will be using the Muziris project area as the second landing point for people, which is basically history and culture and all of those things. There's a canoe which is 1st century BC, which ostensibly was brought by the Romans along with their ship, and because it couldn't come to the shore, they jumped onto this and then they came. And it is there tied down at a place, and it's still preserved more or less like that. So there are various things like that which will become stuff in which will be placed in museums. There will be things about lifestyle, culture, about religious things. There's the Chairman Juma Masjid, the oldest mosque in India. There are some of the oldest synagogues in India, which are there, some of the churches, some of the temples. So I think all of these will get showcased in a comprehensive manner. The third leg of it will be towards Calicut, because Talasheri and Edimara, those have also been great trading spots for the spices. So after Muziris is done, my sense is that we'll open up that part of Kerala in the third phase. But the idea is really that we develop our resources pertaining to the spice route, and each of these countries, 31 countries, will develop their assets pertaining to the spice route. So for a global traveler, for a new age traveler, it can actually be a fascinating journey to go from to sort of to say to come from Arabia to Kerala and then go on to Indonesia or China and see how it played out.
How good is our tourism infrastructure? Isn't it time we did something about our garbage and our roads?
Well, the problem really is there is no such thing as specific tourism infrastructure. You know, typically when a tourist comes, he's using the infrastructure that is already there. But there are certain tourist destinations at which the requirement of any tourist or the expectation is likely to be much higher than what the local community, you know, thinks is appropriate. And so those are focus areas on which we need to work on. We certainly need better roads. I think garbage is an issue which is absolutely killing us. And there is no doubt that if it goes the way that it is, things will, you know, perhaps turn out badly for us. So one of the things that we need to do, one of the biggest jobs that tourism has is advocacy. And that is to push with other departments and say, look, let's do these things together. The second that we would like to do is focused approach, which we are doing. Major destinations like Kovalam, Kumaragam, Fort Cochin, where we have put people, you know, to collect garbage and, you know, Kutumbashri women to clean them up and, you know, set up infrastructure. Like in the Kovalam, we are supporting a very large water supply project, which is clearly the mandate of the Water Resources Department. But because it is a, you know, tourism thing, I think we need to do that. So we are doing a lot of work on that, and we hope that there will be a convergence between the various departments, and eventually things will be better.
Is there a need to create greater awareness among the general public as regards how to treat tourists? Is there a need for certain attitudinal corrections?
Well, like I said, you know, going back to the previous point is, you know, Keralites are by nature attuned to receiving tourists, because I think we're generally friendly, you know, we're generally open, welcoming. So all of that is there. But there's a lot more that can happen. There's a lot more that needs to be done in that space. And I think we need to make our people aware on simple things like garbage, simple things like smiling more often. You know, being friendly with people when
and
you
not to stare at a tourist.
And especially sensitizing them towards women and, you
safety.
know, so safety. Yeah, those issues that we need to do. And one of the, I think, biggest successes we've had is with the tourism clubs. Because each of these schools and colleges where we set up tourism clubs, we've actually had children being sensitized on all of these issues. And children go out on weekends and then they clean up a place, or, you know, so to speak. So I think it's a very good way of sensitizing them when they are very young and really creating stakeholders, because when they go back to their home, they're going to be telling their parents, look, don't litter, because, you know, that's not the right thing to do.
Is enough being done to fully exploit the potential of God's own country?
Well, if you look at the way, you know, the numbers have stacked up, I don't think we could have done any worse than where we are, because I think we've really been growing at a torrid pace. We've done a steady 13-14% for many, many years now. I think now we're still close to double digit now. I don't think no other destination has sustained such kind of a growth over 15-16 years. And two, Kerala is a democracy, and we need to take everybody, you know, together. So it's not that today I decide that I set up, you know, 100 hotels, bring 100 developers and, you know, sort of put it out like that. But I think under the circumstances, under the, you know, participatory kind of a thing that we do, I think the growth that we've had is very good. But having said that, we've been growing on a very small base. Today we're talking about 60,000 classified hotel rooms across Kerala. My sense is that Kerala can support 10 times that number. And perhaps in the target that we should have for the next 7 to 8 years must be that you must grow something, you know, towards that number, and that is where we need to really go.
Kerala has traditionally been known for its beaches and backwaters. What are some of the new destinations that are being identified and promoted?
Yeah, we have beaches, backwaters, we have hill stations, and we have Ayurveda. So these are the 4 pillars on which we operate. And which is really, this variety is really what makes Kerala what it is, because amongst the longest stay that an international tourist has is in Kerala, 19.2 days for an average international tourist, which is, I think, spectacular by all accounts. New things that we need to do is perhaps to weave satellite destinations around the existing ones. Like, for example, today you have Kovalam, where a significant number of tourists come. I think we need to open up few other satellite destinations around that, like Ponmudi, Neyar Dam,
Puvar.
Yeah, Puvar, Pepara, some of these things which we need to do. Also, Padmanabha Swami temple, I don't think the city is adequately leveraged from a tourism perspective. Just because the temple is there and it is, globally talked about for its wealth and all of that, I think we need to play that. So typically, I will be very wary of going off and starting off a new destination, as it were. There is one which we are trying to open up. It's called Elavira Punjara in Kottayam, where we would like to do a Bekal sort of an initiative again, a plant tourism township. But otherwise, I think we are looking...
Is that backwaters again?
No, that's hill station.
Hill station.
Yeah, where we have some land, I think we would like to. There's about 2,000 acres of land which can be developed towards something like this. So that plan is on. But otherwise, we are working around established tourist destinations and how to weave other avenues around that.
Which is your favorite tourist destination?
Perhaps Munnar, because I've lived there for 2 years. I used to be sub-collector there, so perhaps my fondest memories are there. So I think I'll probably go with Munnar.
Okay. Would also like to know a little bit about yourself and your family.
Well, not much to say really. Well, I'm from Hyderabad, and I've studied in Hyderabad and subsequently at the Madras Christian College, Jawaharlal Nehru University. And
but now I think you're a Keralite.
Yes, I am, because I've been here for a long time now. Long enough to be a Keralite.
It's been a pleasure having you on Rose Bowl. Thank you for your valuable time.